All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Crew Show with a little 49er video as Jeremy Fowler on ESPN on Sunday had the latest on the Brandon Aiyuk contract talks. And unfortunately, there's not a lot going on the positive side to report. According to Fowler, Fowler is reporting that the talks are currently not, quote, not in a good place. And that, quote, things have stalled a bit. So, there you go. I mean, that's the latest from Jeremy Fowler, the Niner brass of Kyle Shanahan and, of course, Jed York, John Lynch, Prague Marate. It's June. They still have plenty of time to see where things go over the next 6 weeks before training camp begins. They're going to try to put their best foot forward and get Aiyuk signed long term. Now, the Niners have maintained for months and months that they would like to get Brandon Aiyuk signed up long-term to be a 49er for a long period of time. But while they're saying that publicly, it's also pretty obvious that they're not willing to pay him, quote, wide receiver market value. The wide receiver market has exploded. Justin Jefferson's making $35 million a year, $35 million a year AAV. And you've got Aiyuk, who's one of the best receivers in football. He's in the last year of his rookie deal, playing on the fifth-year option this year, if he doesn't get a deal done, at just slightly over $14 million. So $14 million for Brandon Aiyuk is a steal. It's a steal when the best wide receiver in the game is making $35 million AAV. Mike Silver, who covers the 49ers for the Chronicle, reported last week that he believes the 49ers are at roughly $26 million AAV, average annual value there for the contract. So while that sounds like they're pretty close, there's not a huge difference between $26 million and, I figure my guess is Aiyuk probably wants to be north of $30 million, but south of Jefferson. So Jefferson's at 35. So let's just say they meet in the middle and say 32.5, and let's say that's his ask. Well, there's a big difference of 32.5 per year over, 4 years as opposed to 26. We're talking about $104 million on the low end versus 32.5 a year for 4 years. So there's a significant difference there. We're talking about $20 million of difference between what the Niners may be offering and what Aiyuk's people may be wanting. So we don't really know what the Niners are offering. Silver's speculating. We have no idea what Aiyuk's people want. There's been very little public disclosure of what he's looking for. But I would say that, one, there's still plenty of time to get it done. These things typically get done when there's a deadline. The deadline is you want to get him in there, for training camp. And then if you can't get him in there for the beginning of training camp, you want to get him in there for the preseason. You really don't want to draw this thing out into September and Labor Day and try to have this thing draw into the regular season, because what is likely to happen, he's likely to either get hurt because he missed camp or be not as productive because he missed camp. And now you've won. You may have won the battle in the contract negotiations, or you may have lost the battle, but ultimately you're going to lose the war if he's either unhappy or if he's hurt or if he's not productive. So, the key to negotiating these contracts is to make sure everybody gets signed to a dollar figure that makes sense, and then everybody's happy with that dollar figure, and then everybody produces at least to that dollar figure. And there's all kinds of risk that that's not going to come to fruition in this case because of how the 49ers have handled it and because how Aiyuk's side has handled it and because there's potential that he may miss training camp in the preseason. And it's not like he's a defensive end where he just has to push up the field. He's got to get in lockstep with Brock Purdy and really settle in. So, this is going to be a very interesting 6 weeks before camp. My thought on it would be, I love Brandon Aiyuk. I think he's a really good wide receiver, but there's a lot of receivers out there. And it's not like the Niners can't win without Brandon Aiyuk. I think they can. And ultimately, I'd like to see it get done. And I really don't care if he is making 27 versus 28 versus 30 versus 31. I don't think, I think he should be paid north of 25. I think he should be paid south of 35. But as far as the particulars, I don't think most Niner fans really care about the particulars. I mean, they want the Niners to get a decent deal. They want Aiyuk to feel like he's respected. But I don't think anybody's really got a super strong opinion on exactly what he makes during this contract. But I will say this, if it gets to the point where it's at an impasse, I wouldn't just let this thing go all year. I would make the best deal I could make. The Chargers are in their Super Bowl window. Harbaugh wants to win it. They don't have any receivers. Trade him to the Chargers. The Steelers are desperate for another receiver. Trade him to the Steelers. New England's desperate for a receiver. Trade him to New England. The Raiders are desperate for another receiver. Trade him to the Raiders. If I could get a couple decent players or a player and a pick back that I thought was decent value, I would do it. I definitely wouldn't let this year be ruined because of a contractual snafu with a wide receiver. He's got tremendous value. He's from Rockland, went to Sierra College. Love to see drafted by the Niners, developed by the Niners. I'd love to see Aiyuk stay with the Niners, but to a point. At the end of the day, he's a good receiver. He's not Jerry Rice. We're not talking about Jerry Rice here. We're talking about a good receiver, maybe even a very good receiver. But this idea that, oh my God, you can't trade him. No, you can trade him. And if it doesn't work out and you want to, if the Niners want to offer him, 26 to 29 and hold steady there and say, hey, you know what? Take our 26, 27, 28, 29 and come in and play. And if that's not enough for you, play out this year at $14 million. I guess my first choice would be get it done and have him be happy. My second choice would be, don't get it done and trade him. My third choice would be make him play on the franchise or make him play on the fifth-year option at $14 million, because then you have a guy who's maybe bitter and you've got teammates in the room who maybe are bitter that you didn't pay him and didn't take care of him. So the last thing I want to see the Niners do is play super hardball and pay him, the fifth-year option and just say, take it. I don't want to see that. And I don't want to see them give in and say, here's $34 million a year either, because I don't think he's worth that. My first choice would be sign him somewhere between 26 and 29 per year. My second option would be trade him to the best option you can get, not Green Bay, but to the AFC for a good price. And I guess my third option, and the one I don't want to see happen, is, hey, Brandon, we're paying you, on the fifth-year option at $14 million. Just take it. I don't think that works. I don't think it's 2024. Players have too strong a voice. He's too big of a figure in the room. There's too many veterans. There's too much unknown that could happen there. That is my last option. Sign him, option one. Trade him, option number two. Make him play on the fifth-year option has got to be the third and final option. All right, thanks to Pig in a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Check that link in the description. Use the promo code KRUG, KRUEG, and they'll match you up to your first $100. And thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.